We are Frank and Daphne, a couple of not-so-young cycle tourists from Canada, and we're off on another adventure in Europe. This time we're setting out to explore the Via Claudia Augusta, a historic route through the Alps that follows an old Roman road that connects the River Danube and the Adriatic Sea. We're flying into Frankfurt, so we'll be riding a few hundred extra kilometres from the airport to get to where the Roman road begins. So join us as we make our way from Frankfurt in Germany to the city of Venice in Italy, following in the footsteps of the Romans. Good morning from our little hotel in the town of Villafranca di Verona, not far south of the city of Verona, where we're waking up to what should be our last day on the Via Claudia Augusta cycle route. Our odometers at this point show just over 1,100 kilometres since we set off from Frankfurt almost 4 weeks ago. And it's about another 50 kilometres to the River Po and the end of the Via Claudia Augusta. Our bicycle spent the night safely behind bars in that locked lift shaft across the courtyard, along with trolleys of laundry and hotel supplies. And we get to enjoy the included breakfast, which is typical Italian hotel style, with an awful lot of very sweet tarts and cakes, much too sweet even for me at this time of day. This is Saturday morning, and we are leaving our lovely hotel in Villafranca di Verona, heading, well, first of all east, then south towards the River Po.
Let's go.
Let's go. Heading out of Villafranca di Verona. I love this little town. It's really, really nice. Full of history. Napoleon stayed overnight in this house on our left here, the one with the arched doorway, the night before one of his big battles during one of the wars of independence. As we made our way down the main street, we cycled once again past the Scalogero Castle. Its vast castle courtyard is a well-known venue for rock music concerts. Bob Dylan played here several years ago. Before long, we were out of the town and found ourselves on quiet country roads. In an apple zone again. I'm not sure how we ended up on this busy section of road. It sure wasn't fun, but fortunately we soon found our way back onto our intended route on quiet gravel roads. This is a lovely. And here, as we ride along these fields, some of which are turning golden, with lots of irrigation channels surrounding them, we're probably looking at rice paddies, as we're now in the region of the Po Valley known for rice cultivation. They grow a few specific types of rice here, ideally suited for traditional Italian dishes, risottos in particular. Italy is one of the leading rice producers in Europe, and here in the Po Valley, extending from the northern regions of Piedmont, Lombardy, and here in Veneto, is where most of it happens.
Ciao bella! Buongiorno!
Buongiorno! This morning's ride was all about the rice and a great variety of vegetable farming, interspersed with some vineyards. No livestock in sight at all. We didn't see many people, but we did meet this friendly couple who were out for a walk, although with our complete lack of Italian, a proper conversation was difficult.
Via Claudia. Via Claudia Augusta to Ostiglia.
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 Ostiglia. Ostiglia. Andate a Ostiglia adesso.
Yeah, from
50.
Vuoi peccato. Non sapere inglese, noi colpa nostra.
Okay.
Ciao,
Ciao, thanks.
Here we are in the middle of vineyards and cornfields. And here's a lovely little stone chapel.
Yesterday there was sun and there was rain, beauty in the mundane.
They're small grapes, but very sweet and juicy. I can hear the noon bells ringing in the village up ahead.
And now there's something in the air and a sparkly shimmer on our skin, restoring everything within. Dreamy.
The best we could do for a scenic picnic lunch spot was a bench by the road outside the quiet village of Sorga.
On our tiptoes, undercover agents of the other, beyond gravel.
It feels so weird. We're on this road in the middle of the country and we're
Because of this
waiting
party.
at a red light.
Reaching for the grand, as willows align, we lose track of time.
The next section took us through lots more fields of vegetables and many that had already been harvested. There were a few small villages and many crumbling, dilapidated buildings that were probably once fine villas and homes to wealthy Venetian families. Traffic consisted mostly of large tractors hauling the yields of the harvest. It wasn't until about 35 kilometres into today's ride that we came upon our very first Via Claudia sign of the day. That was a reassuring sight. The last sign we'd seen was a couple of days ago, way back somewhere before Verona. So you definitely couldn't rely on signage for this leg of the Roman road. Things got a bit more interesting just before 3 o'clock when our GPS steered us onto a grassy track next to an irrigation canal. So this is the road Komoot is taking us on. Our Komoot routes, by the way, are taken from, well, what we believe to be the official Claudia Augusta organization. So anyway, this is interesting, but I see a car ahead.
Different type of road so far.
Yeah. Well, we certainly have had all variety of roads today, from busy ones to bumpy, cracked sidewalks to a few gravel roads, which are nice. And this one, wow, this is really different. Everything was going along just fine till we decided that the track on the other side looked better. It looks better. Things always look better on the other side. So when we came to a little bridge, we decided to cross over. Well, we're still going on this We switched sides of the little canal because it looked like there was more dirt on this side, but that ended and it's grassy. There's a big cornfield through the trees on our left, and every now and then I see these tracks made across this road, probably made by some river creatures going back and forth from the field to the canal. I think it might be nutria, but who knows. We reached the end of the road. Well, not the end of the road, but it started to swing around here, and there is no way to get across the canal on this side from what we can see. I checked the satellite map on Google. So back we go. So much for my bright idea of riding on the better side. Ha ha ha. So we had become trapped at the convergence with another canal and just couldn't get to where we needed to. So back we went to the little bridge where we continued on the correct route. We had added on another kilometre or two to our grassy ride, but we did soon connect up with the so-called proper route.
Right side.
On the correct side. So we can connect up with this little path, which is signed the Via Claudia. We were going through a little bird reserve, nature reserve. Well, whoever designed this route, and I'm pretty sure it wasn't the Romans, must have thought that visiting cyclists should have a side trip through a nature reserve before arriving in Ostiglia. So there's 3 young nutria on the path up ahead there. Nutria are semi-aquatic rodents that were introduced to Europe from South America, but which are now an unwelcome pest. They can do serious damage to crops and irrigation systems. They look quite like a beaver, but their tail is round instead of flat. There were actually a lot of birds here, but I didn't have the right camera to film them with. And we are back on a proper track. Still in a nature reserve. At this point, we were only about 5 kilometres from Hostilia and the River Po. We had looked earlier in the day for accommodation options, and definitely there were no campgrounds, but we couldn't find any hotel or agroturismos available in the area at all. So on Google Maps, I had seen a hotel in the town centre with a phone number associated with it, which I called and talked to a man who didn't have much English, but enough to gather that I needed a room. And it sounded like we would be sorted with the bed for the night. Via Claudia. So we're not lost. No, we knew we weren't lost. We just didn't see much signage up until near the very end here. I can't help wondering if many people ride this section of the Via Claudia Augusta. I suspect not. If anyone viewing this has ridden it, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. We decided to do it just to add to the variety of scenery along the tour and for the sake of completing the historic route. Now, this will probably make me sound like some kind of nerd, but I remember from my secondary school geography classes learning about the rivers of the world, and I remember the River Po, and I'm actually very curious and maybe even a little bit excited about seeing it. That is a big river. We dropped down off the riverside bike path to a little park where a replica Roman milestone announced the beginning, or end in our case, of the Via Claudia Augusta. We quietly marked the end of our ride along its Padana branch and pondered what it might have been like here at the time of the Romans, when this important port town was called Hostilia. The mighty Po would have provided access to the Adriatic Sea downstream, and thus an important connection with the port of Ravenna farther down the coast. Its agricultural resources described by this sign as the granary for the troops. Then we proceeded to ride into town to find this hotel that promised to have a room for us. So we're here in Ostiglia. It's a funny little town, at least that's my impression so far. So here we are, we're going to have a beer first. Ah, grazie. Our host Ricardo, the man I'd spoken to on the phone earlier, soon showed up and warmly welcomed us to his hotel and restaurant and made sure our bikes were safely stored inside. This is our friend Ricky, the hotel owner. He's been really nice. Very. Here's our little room in Ricardo's hotel in Ostiglia. We got ourselves settled into our room, and after a short wander around the town, came back to enjoy a lovely dinner in the hotel restaurant, which proved to serve very good food. But the highlight of the whole day came when Frank ordered an after-dinner grappa, and this happened.
In Canada ci vado sicuro.
Oh!
Bravo! Grazie!
Here we are in Ostiglia, Sunday morning, departing. This was our little hotel last night, right in the town. There weren't too many options. But the restaurant was excellent and we were well looked after by Ricardo. So this morning, as we get ready to leave Ostiglia, it has been exactly 4 weeks since we set off from Frankfurt airport. We've had a few days off the bikes during that time, but we are starting day 24 of actual riding and we're still really enjoying it. We've now completed the Via Claudia Augusta trail. We clocked up just under 800 kilometres on that section. We've done 1173 kilometres total so far. But now we have new goals to look forward to. The route we've planned from here to Venice will take us along the River Po on paths that are also part of the EuroVelo 8 cycling route. The city of Ferrara promises to be very interesting, and then it will be on to Chioggia, which is known as Little Venice, before we start heading up along the Venetian Lagoon towards the city of Venice itself. So we're left with about 200 kilometres from here to Venice. That was the sign for EuroVelo 8, and we'll be using parts of EuroVelo 8 on our way to Venice. Well, Ostiglia is an important point on the Roman road, or was, but as a town it offers very little. It did not impress us at all. Once we leave Ostiglia now, we'll be crossing the river right away and travelling on the right bank until Ferrara. Ferrara, 62.8. The town of Reverie on the other side of the river has an interesting castle, so we stopped briefly here to have a look around. Fun, that man tried to explain some things about the palace. It was quite the place once upon a time. For the next while, we had a good paved cycle path, which at times gave us nice views of the misty Po River, but at other times the path took us well away from the river. Every now and then we'd meet a local cyclist, otherwise things were very quiet with just farmland. And we did find a pleasant spot by a boat dock to have our picnic lunch. We're right alongside the Po again. Much of the pathway sits on top of, well, we're on top of a levee, and much of it is well away from the river with huge plantations of trees. I'm not sure if they're poplars. So it's nice when we actually get close to the river to see it. We're in the little village of Salonika along the Po, and it's awfully quiet this Sunday. We wondered if there might be a coffee shop open. Well, that was Salonika. There wasn't a lot going on in there. It's so quiet. It's Sunday afternoon, yet there's not a single person around. Well, we've met a few people on bikes, but we saw a couple of pleasure craft out on the river, but that's it. It's just so quiet. This fortress was an interesting surprise. It had a partner fortress on the other side of the river, and it provided an important river barrier capable of blocking the passage of ships by means of an iron chain that, if necessary, could be stretched between the two forts. This military measure not only allowed control of the levies imposed for commercial navigation, but also made it possible to intercept any hostile fleets coming up the river. The star-shaped layout probably dates back to 1570, and it is this characteristic form that gave the name to the nearby village of Stellata. Campgrounds are a rarity in this part of the world. This is well off the tourist trail, and there's hardly anything by way of camping until you get to the coast. However, we found one along today's route that we figured was worth cutting our day short for. It's called Fireflies in the Fog, and this place was a real gem. It's rare to find a campground along the River Po in this area, but we found one, and it's really nice, and we've just had a couple of beers. There's a restaurant here, and it's open tonight, so we don't have much food, so that's what we needed to hear. So we'll dine in the restaurant. There's our campground down there. It's a very chill place, very peaceful. And just over the bank here is the River Po. So we did dine in the restaurant tonight and had a fabulous dinner and great conversation with a couple of the other guests. This is probably our last campground, maybe of the whole cycle tour, because there's no campgrounds in this area between here and the coast on our way to Venice. There's a lot of dew here today, and right over the embankment there is the River Po. This morning we're enjoying a really chill start to the day in this fine establishment. We're taking our time packing up and enjoying a very leisurely breakfast in the restaurant. What a fabulous campground. I'm so glad we stopped here. Turned out to be a pricey stop though, because of the gourmet dinner we had last night. But it was a lovely experience. Ah, here's Frank getting packed up. Great campground. Great stay here. We're seeing all kinds of canals and channels here and dams. The Po has a complicated network of branches. Some were built to mitigate flooding. I imagine some are built to irrigate. The Po is Italy's longest river at 652 kilometers, and it has 141 tributaries. The source is in the Alps near the French border. However, due to seasonal variations of its flow, it's very prone to flooding. Thus, over half its length is controlled with embankments. We're on EuroVelo 8 still. This morning was our latest start of the whole tour. It's after 11 o'clock and we've only just left the campground, but it was so relaxing. I think it was good for us. We did see some other cycle tourists this morning. This group of Australians were also on their way to Venice. They had followed EuroVelo 8 from Spain or France. I can't remember where they started.
Which part of Australia are you from?
Perth, Western Australia.
Western Australia. Very, very somewhere, right?
Yeah, it is the wild west of Australia.
Western Australia. Yes.
A little bit of woodland makes a nice change in this area. We only have about 25 kilometres to ride to get to the city of Ferrara, and the route we're on is well south of the Po. But we did cross over a surprisingly large body of water that couldn't have been the Po. Turns out this is called the Cavo Napoleonico, a huge flood control channel that was created in 1807 under the rule of Napoleon Bonaparte. It provides flood relief for the Reno River, which is south of here, but it only works when the Po is not in flood at the same time as the Reno. It's so complicated. The rest of the route to Ferrara was very rural, following many small irrigation canals through large swaths of agricultural land. We had some swirling winds to deal with, but nothing too serious. Now, look at this smooth highway. The bumps have stopped. We must be within Ferrara city limits or something. We're about 8 kilometers from the center of Ferrara. The pathway maintenance improved the closer we got to Ferrara. Uh-oh. We hit a roadblock. Well, maybe I spoke too soon, as it's still a works in progress.
Try that way.
Yeah, due to construction, we're on a detour into Ferrara. Wow, look at that, a campground sign. We're just coming into the centre of Ferrara now. We entered the historic centre through the Piazza del Municipio, and exited the archway of the Torre della Vittoria right onto the grand Piazza della Cathedral, right opposite Ferrara Cathedral and its three-tiered ornate facade, which is undergoing a facelift at the moment. The Duomo has a marble campanile or bell tower and a row of arcades along its side that have held shops ever since medieval times. And next to the cathedral is the 15th century town hall with its distinctive tower. Just around the corner we found a street cafe where we stopped for lunch before continuing our tour. One thing we learned is that Ferrara has its very own style of elaborately shaped bread called copia. After lunch we once again rode by the cathedral and its beautiful marble tower and took note of all the stone columns along the arcade here, each one with a different carving at the top. In front of the town hall, two ancient bronze statues of Niccolo III and Borso of Este pay tribute to two members of the powerful Este family who governed here for 3 centuries. Ferrara is actually known for the buildings erected by its Renaissance rulers, the Este family. They gave the city the appearance it has today, a uniquely planned modern city, harmoniously fusing medieval and Renaissance architecture, the characteristics that secured its UNESCO World Heritage status in 1995. That brings us to another great legacy of the Este dynasty, the massive Castello Estense, or Este Castle, just up the road from the cathedral. This was built in 1385 initially as a defensive and military fortress for the Este family, but later turned into Este's luxurious dwelling and ducal residence. Its imposing proportions, its moat, drawbridges and towers date back to that earlier time. It was later greatly embellished with roof terraces at the top of the towers, marble balconies, the Renaissance-style courtyard and sumptuous apartments. The imposing towers stand out at the four corners of the castle, symbols of the magnificence of the Este family. We now leave the castle and start making our way north along the cobblestone Corso Ercole I Este, a beautiful thoroughfare that was laid out during town planning in the Renaissance period. The road goes all the way north to one of the city gates in the old city walls. This was the address of some very fine palaces dating from the Este period. This particular palace, the Palazzo Gulanelli, is from a later period, though dating from the 18th century, but it has an interesting claim to fame. A plaque on the door reads, "In this palazzo in the summer of 1900, Ettore Bugatti and Conti Gulanelli met and laid the foundations for the creation of the Bugatti car brand." This is the Palazzo di Diamanti, a truly unique building designed by the Este's favourite architect, Rossetti. The exterior is composed of about 8,500 blocks of white marble veined with pink in the shape of a diamond. It housed various members of the Este family, and nowadays it houses 2 important art galleries. So now we're exiting Ferrara, heading to the north. Our route now will take us back up to the River Po, where we'll follow the right bank and make our way to the small town of Polsella on the north side of the river, where we managed to find a hotel. That's about 25 kilometers from Ferrara. We're back along the Po. Rain is starting.
Don't give up on me, babe. Did you forget what you said? I'm the one that you want. Was it all in my head? Don't give up on me, babe. No, I fell in too deep. Hope that you see it's all or nothing for me. Stay by my side just tonight. My heart is on the line. Stay by my side just tonight. In the morning we can pick up the fight. Don't give up on me, babe. Remember the early days, you and me in the sun. Let the sweet times carry us. Don't give up on me, babe.
So we've done 45k now for today so far. In about another 5 to 8 kilometers we have a hotel booked in a little village on the other side of the Po. There's very little, very little accommodation around here of any kind. I phoned a couple of places and they were already full. As we approached the bridge across the Po, we had to negotiate a strange little convolution to get up onto the bridge deck, but we eventually figured it out thanks to Google Maps. And there isn't really a proper lane for bikes at all. The pavement is a bit of a mess. We eventually made our way to Hotel Enjoy by about 7 p.m, which conveniently was right next to Eurospar, where we got some dinner supplies before checking into the thoroughly modern and lovely hotel, which we really did enjoy.
Morning.